He preached hope every Sunday while slowly losing his own. He spoke about trust while fear quietly took its seat in his heart. The congregation never noticed. Pastors are not supposed to doubt. But one night, alone in an empty sanctuary, he realized the truth that terrified him most. He still believed in God, but he no longer believed with God. And that was when restoration began. Called early, called deeply, he did not stumble into ministry. He felt called clearly, unmistakably. Scripture burned in his chest. Prayer came easily. Faith felt alive. He entered pastoral life, believing devotion alone would sustain him. He was wrong. The weight of sacred responsibility. Pastoral work carries unseen weight. Every crisis becomes personal. Every question feels urgent. Every failure echoes. He carried grief that was not his own until it became his. Doubt did not arrive as rebellion. It came as fatigue, unanswered prayers, repeated tragedies. People he prayed for who never healed. Questions formed where certainty once lived. Preaching what you no longer feel, he continued preaching. Truth he still affirmed, but no longer felt. Words remained accurate. Spirit felt distant. The gap widened. When God feels silence, silence unsettles those who serve. God publicly, because silence feels like abandonment. When others expect certainty, he waited. He prayed. The silence persisted. Isolation behind the pulpit. Pastors are often alone even among people. Confession feels dangerous. Vulnerability feels irresponsible. So he smiled and carried doubt alone. Faith reduced to function. Prayer became routine. Scripture became preparation. Worship became leadership. Faith became a job. And something essential was lost. When success masks emptiness, the church grew. Attendance increased. Praise followed. But success cannot resurrect intimacy. He was applauded and empty. The fear of exposure. He'd feared one thing above all, that someone would see through him. Not hypocrisy, but exhaustion. Not disbelief, but despair. Theology without encounter. He knew doctrine, he taught truth. But theology without encounter becomes hollow. He spoke about God more than he spoke to God. The breaking point. The breaking point was not scandal. It was honesty. One night, alone, he admitted, I don't know if I still believe the way I once did. The confession terrified him. Stepping away, he stepped back, not from faith, but from performance. Silence replaced sermons. Stillness replaced schedules. He feared collapse. Instead, something else happened. God was not offended. God did not recoil from his doubt. He did not withdraw. His presence, he waited, patient, present. Rediscovering honest prayer, his prayers changed. They became shorter, less polished, more real. I'm tired. I'm confused. I miss you. God listened. Faith without applause for the first time in years. Faith was private, no audience, no expectations, just a man and his God. Scripture came alive again. He stopped studying Scripture to explain it. He began reading it to survive. Words softened him. Truth met him personally. Healing old wounds. Ministry had reopened wounds he never addressed. Faith gave him permission to heal, not perform. God tended what he had ignored, redefining clinkling. It was no longer about usefulness. It became about faithfulness. God valued presence more than productivity. Learning to be led again, pastors lead instinctively, but he learned to follow again, to wait, to listen, to obey quietly. Faith reborn, not recovered. This was not a return to old faith. It was a deeper one, less dramatic. Faith tested and refined. Grace taught himself, he forgave himself for doubting, for burning out, for breaking. Grace replaced guilt. Returning changed when he returned to ministry. People noticed something different. Not louder sermons, more honesty, New kind of authority no longer came from certainty. It came from humility, from knowing what it means to fall and be restored. Teaching from wounds, not distanced. He preached less about answers, more about trust, more about waiting, more about God's patience. The congregation healed to honesty, created space. Others confessed doubts. Faith deepened, weakened when God restores. He redefines. God did not simply return what was lost. He transformed it. Faith became quieter but stronger. No longer afraid of questions. No longer threatened him. They became doorways. God was not afraid of them. The gift of weakness became permission for himself and others. The pastor stopped pretending. The church started healing. A testimony without drama. There was no spectacle, no public breakdown, just restorations, slow and sure. For those who serve and doubt if you serve God and feel emptier are not faithless. You are human, and God has not left. God's faithfulness is not fragile. Doubt does not scare him. Your questions do not offend him. He remains the final truth. He was a pastor who lost his faith. That was real. But God restored him, not by shame, not by force, by presence. And in that restoration, he learned the truth he now lives by. Faith is not the absence of doubt. It is the courage to trust God within it.